transfers by operation of law and by gift. So, law, obviously, if you die, or gift is somebody gives you something. Where those two types of things are going to happen. Law might be you're involved in a court case, and somebody gets part of your real estate as a judgment. So there's different ways the law can come into impact transfer of property. Okay, so we're going to talk about something called adverse possession. We're going to distinguish adverse possession from prescriptive easements. We're going to talk about eminent domain. We're going to explain when a regulation can constitute a taking. We're going to talk about the importance of a donor's intent in making a gift. And then we're going to describe the elements of a valid gift. Adverse possession allows a person who does not have title to property to obtain title in property. You think, well, wait a minute. I thought we're going to buy real estate. There's another way you can get real estate without buying it. You can actually take it by adverse possession. It can only occur on privately owned property. And the usage elements that enable adverse possession are as follows. It has to be adverse and hostile. You have to have actual possession, exclusive possession. You're doing this open, visibly, and notoriously. And you continue it for a statutory period of time. In Ohio, it's 21 years for this adverse possession. That's a long period of time to be taking and using somebody else's property. And most people only stay in their own property for 7 to 10 years. So that's a long time for adverse possession. So adverse, without the owner's permission in a manner that is inconsistent with the true owner's legal title. You have to have actual possession. The adverse possessor will only be able to acquire adverse possession interest on land that adverse possession actually occupies. And exclusive. They cannot share possession with the legal title holder of the property or with the general public. So they exclusively have to use it, or try to use it. Again, this open, visible, and notorious. The adverse possessor's acts must be visible and obvious enough to put a reasonable owner on notice that someone is attempting to claim the property. The adverse possessor must also continuously occupy the property without significant interruption for a state-required statutory time. Again, in Ohio, it's 21 years. So to stop adverse possession, the legal owner of the property can take steps to halt the adverse possession claim. They can file a lawsuit for trespass or quiet title action, or they can grant permission. Other potential requirements, each state can create its own requirements that also say that they have to pay taxes and they have to perfect the title by adverse possession. So they may have some other requirements that they have to do. So in adverse possession, I've never come across, I haven't seen it actually ever happen. But I'll tell you this, I occupy a couple inches of my neighbor's yard with my driveway. Is that considered adverse possession, or is that considered an easement? We've been doing it for a long time. We've lived there over 35 years. And we've also repaved the driveway, or put new concrete in. We totally tore it out and put new concrete in. It's just a couple inches. But, so you guys are all saying you think it's easement. And because I also have never paid the real estate taxes on it. When you look at the property lines, it's still showing as their property. I've never gone in to try to file and claim differently. Now, I could make it mine. I could go over, knock on my neighbor's door and say, I'm taking this over. I'm going to have a new survey done. I'm going to take it as part of mine. I'm going to go file it. I'm going to start paying real estate taxes on it. Then that would become this whole thing of adverse possession. I would be open, notoriously telling them what I was going to do. And I wouldn't even wait around for them to say yes or no. I'd just go do it. That would be adverse.
Done it for over 21 years.
Yeah, well, that would be adverse possession but if I actually said, do you mind if I do it, and they gave me permission, it would not be adverse anymore.
Yeah, but who, I mean, that's your example, but like who, I just think of like somebody living up on the side of the mountain.
Side of the mountain, the farm. They take over the neighbor's farm property. Okay,
yeah.
so
they are not going to, it's been 21 years, now I can file. They're just going to keep doing their thing.
Yes, but again, this whole piece of paying real estate taxes, taking it over, taking actual more of a title to it is steps further. So you don't see this happening very often, and where it does happen, when you see it more happen, is when property sells. When somebody's trying to sell it and they're trying to tell this next owner, but we own this too. But if we own this too, we better make sure we own it too, if we're going to sell it too.
If you're going to plop a cabin on somebody's land, and you're there for 30 years, how much land do you actually get if somebody places it later on? I mean, if you don't have it fenced off.
Well, this would be, again, you forever's possession to go in and make a claim, to stake a claim, to say that you have this many acres.
You just make up any number.
You can make up any number,
So
but you
they
want to
go
go
there,
stake it out. You want to go stake it out and make a claim to it.
Right.
Start paying taxes on it. Start getting the bills for it. It takes a long time. It's not an easily done thing. And more often than not, where this happened was settlement of land and stuff
Yeah.
like that over time.
But do you have to pay taxes like right away at the beginning of it?
No, just as you get, when you ultimately get possession of it, you're going to pay
At
taxes.
the 21st year, that's when.
Well, it depends
sometime
on
you're trying
somewhere
to
in that
ease your
time
way
frame.
into
Yeah,
it.
somewhere in that time frame. And I think I just lost this. Okay, so eminent domain and regulatory takings. The government has the power to take private property for public uses through eminent domain. Where did we see that done recently? Brookwood was the last case that was really done, Brookwood 3, where they were trying to, the city of Norwood was trying to take over those 75 people's property and then turn it over and give it to the Anderson Development Company so it could be turned into the hotel, office, shopping center buildings that it is today in Brookwood 3. Okay, so we saw this huge case happen. It went to the Supreme Court of Ohio, and Norwood lost. The property owners won. They said it's not a valid taking. We won't allow eminent domain to happen in this way. What happened was that Norwood had decided to take the land and hold the land, keep the land themselves, and do a lease on the land. But Norwood would be able to get the benefits of ownership. Eminent domain probably would have worked. But where Norwood screwed up is they wanted to give the property to the Anderson Development Company. Today's view of eminent domain says you can't turn this property over to a private developer and let them make more money off of it. That's where it all fell apart. That's the whole piece that fell apart with this. But we'll still see eminent domain when there's road widening. You're going to see that. If they're going to build a school and they have to take over property where you have a property owner that objects, or they want to build some kind of municipal building or something like that, some public building, school, something like that, you're going to still see eminent domain being used. Where you won't see it used for a long time will be private developers. Private developers are going to step away from this real quick. Now, it was tried in Ohio Supreme Court. It wasn't tried in Kentucky. It wasn't tried in Indiana or anywhere else. But because it was tried in Ohio Supreme Court, it set a course precedent to be gone all around the country. So this is enough of a thing, it's enough of a current case that other developers are going to step away for a while. They're just not interested in going there. There's 3 important questions. Is there a taking of private property? Is the taking for public use or public purpose? And has the just compensation been paid to the private property owner? What is just compensation? In an eminent domain, we talk about getting property appraised and paying the property value for the property. In Norwood, what Anderson was doing is he was paying these people 3 times what their property was worth. It was great values for most of the people. That was the best money they were going to come by. That's why 72 of 75 property owners said, yeah, I'll take it. And they sold their houses and they moved on to better lifestyles because they got a great amount of money. But reality says, well, should he have actually paid more than that? It's commercial. He took what was residential property and made it now commercial property. But he still had to do the whole infrastructure. They had to go in and do all the utilities and all the improvements to be able to make it that commercial property and rezone it from residential to retail. So there was a lot involved in getting it to that next use. But ultimately, the property owners won the last 3 holdouts, and they won the rights to the big money. That's ultimately what it was all about, is holding out for big money. Eminent domain and regulatory takings. Taking of private property. A taking of private property occurs where the landowner is deprived of use of the property. There's a permanent physical invasion of the property. And regulatory taking occurs that denies the landowner all economic uses of the property. So basically, they can't even use it as a house anymore when this kind of taking happens. In my neighborhood, they took roads chunks of people's front yards to make cul-de-sacs. It's god-awful ugly looking. But they took big chunks of people's front yards, but it didn't stop them from using their houses. It's just ugly as all sin. If you live on that new little cul-de-sac now at the front of the neighborhood, where you got this ugly fence almost right up against your porch, and people are driving literally through your front yard now because it's now paved as part of the cul-de-sac. But that was part of this whole. If people didn't agree, they went through this eminent domain process and were able to take the properties. And it didn't stop them from all economic uses. So it's not a total taking. The property cannot be taken by eminent domain unless it's for a public use, and the just compensation has to be fair market value at the time of the taking. So what is fair market value? Is fair market value for residential purposes, or was it in Norwood residential to retail purposes? What is really fair market value? So there's a lot of questions about that when that happened. Transfers by gift. When title to real property is transferred by one person or donor to another, the donee without any consideration, it's called a gift. We can have gifts made during donors' lifetimes, and we can have gifts, the requirements to make it a valid gift. The donor's intention to make a gift, the gift's delivery to the donee, and the gift's acceptance. So it has to be intention, delivery, and acceptance to make it a valid gift. So when somebody's dying, they can say, I want to give this to somebody. It's not part of my will, but I'm just going to give it to them. But they never went through the whole process of making sure the other person received it. It never was a gift. They didn't get that far to make it done. So there's requirements to make the gift work. Causa-mortem gifts occur when a donor makes a gift in contemplation of his or her death. Again, you've got to go through the steps to say, I'm going to give it to you. Here it is, accept it. Setting aside a gift. When a gift results from fraud, duress, material mistake, or undue influence, the courts may set it aside. So the courts may come in and say, sorry, the gift is invalid. We're going to return it back to the estate or back to where it originally was. And I think we just got through gifts that quickly, guys, and that's what I wanted to do. All right, we did. Any questions about gifts? All right.